At a lavish family wedding, my cousin raised his glass and shouted, "Let's all hope she at least marries well, because she's not making it big on her own." Everyone howled with laughter as I sat quietly. Over a decade, I silently built a rival empire. When I bought out the company he inherited, I terminated him publicly at his own anniversary gala. His marriage collapsed. His name was dragged through the business journals as the man who lost a dynasty, and his children now carry his failure like a curse. Charleston, South Carolina. 12 years ago, I was 24 and sitting alone at a long table covered in gold-rimmed plates and glasses I didn't recognize the names of. My cousin Garrett was getting married. The kind of wedding where everything smelled like roses and money, waiters in white gloves, a band that had played for politicians, a guest list that included a local news anchor. I was nobody that day, just the girl with the wrinkled dress my mom saved up for. I'd graduated college a few months earlier. English degree, no job yet. No plan. I worked 2 days a week at a bookstore and lived above a barbecue joint. It smelled like grease and I barely made rent. But I smiled and sat there through the whole wedding, trying not to feel like the odd one out. My mom kept whispering to me, "Try to look happy. This is your cousin's big day." Then the toast started. Long speeches full of bad jokes, old memories, and bragging about success. They handed the mic to Garrett. My heart dropped before he even opened his mouth. He was already half drunk. He raised his glass and said loud and clear, "Let's all hope she at least marries well, because she's not making it big on her own." Everyone laughed. Hard. The sound of it made my chest hurt. My uncle doubled over with laughter. Garrett's new bride, Cassidy, had to wipe tears from her eyes. Even my mom smiled and shook her head like, "Oh, that Garrett." I sat there frozen, my face burning. Everyone looking at me, laughing at me. I didn't say a word. I went home that night and wrote one sentence in my old notebook. "Don't get mad. Get important." I never showed anyone that notebook. The next few years weren't glamorous. I took every writing job I could find: small blogs, real estate ads, company emails. I got paid $25 for a whole day of work some days, but I got better. I watched, learned. I saw what worked, what didn't. I figured out how companies thought, what they were afraid of. I started branding small businesses. First for free, then for cheap, then for real money. I built a small client list. My living room became my office. I barely slept. My cousin Garrett was in the papers. His dad's company, Lennox and Vaughn Interiors, was a big name. Expensive furniture. Luxury showrooms. Garrett was handed a VP role the year he turned 30. He wore suits that cost more than my car. He'd smile for the camera and say things like, "We're redefining the modern Southern home." People said he was brilliant. I knew better. Garrett never built anything. He just wore the crown his dad passed down. He didn't understand the internet. He didn't care about the small details that actually made people buy things. But I stayed quiet. Kept working. By 29, I had a company of my own. Sparrow and Key. Branding and digital strategy. I hired 2 people. Then 4. Then 10. I didn't advertise. Word spread. And I never forgot the sound of that room laughing at me. Around year 8, Garrett started struggling. Quietly at first. I saw it before most did. Too many new store openings. Heavy loans. Trying to chase trends he didn't understand. He ran flashy ad campaigns that went nowhere. Spent big money on influencer deals that didn't convert. His brand started slipping. That's when I got a call from a retail board member in Charlotte. They wanted help rebranding a furniture company called Branford Ellis and Company. I saw the name and smiled. They were the number 2 competitor to Lennox and Vaughn. Old school but smart. Willing to change. I gave them a full rebuild: website, ad, store redesign, voice, logo, everything. Within 2 years they were climbing fast. Profitable. Visible. Garrett's company? Dropping. And then Branford Ellis offered to acquire the failing parts of Lennox and Vaughn. Through a group I helped put together, I bought a 49% stake in Branford Ellis. It wasn't in my name. I used a shell holding firm. I kept my name far from it until the very last moment. Then we moved. It was his 10-year wedding anniversary. Cassidy planned it like it was a royal event. Same location as their wedding, rented out the entire estate. Flowers everywhere. Guests in tuxedos and designer gowns. I showed up alone, in a fitted black suit.
No flash.
Garrett spotted me and froze. He didn't recognize me at first. Then it clicked. He walked over, smiled like he was still king. Didn't expect to see you here. You consulting or crashing? I looked him in the eye and said, I'm here for the announcement. What announcement? I handed him the press release. He skimmed it. His lips moved, reading to himself. Then he looked back at me. You're kidding. I didn't say a word. He tried to keep calm. Tried to act like it wasn't real. But he was sweating. Cassidy walked over asking what was wrong. Garrett just shook his head and said, Nothing. But it was everything. That night, before the toast, I was given the mic. I stood at the same spot where he humiliated me 10 years ago. Tonight, we welcome a new chapter. Lennox and Vaughn Interiors is now under new leadership. We thank the former executive team for their years of service. Effective immediately, Garrett Vaughn is stepping down from all roles. Dead silence. Cassidy stood there frozen. Then someone clapped. Slowly. It spread. Garrett didn't move. Cassidy turned to him and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, Is this a joke? It wasn't. She left that night without him. Garrett didn't leave quietly. He called the board members, tried to get votes shifted. He accused the acquisition team of manipulation. Even suggested I had seduced someone into the deal. It got pathetic fast. One of the board members called me and said, He's unraveling. But it got worse. Cassidy filed for divorce within 2 weeks. Rumors swirled she'd been talking to someone else for months. A real estate broker. The same guy who'd sold them their second home. Garrett's name was stripped from the company website. The local business paper ran the headline, From CEO to cut loose. Garrett Vaughn ousted in surprise takeover. Another one said, Golden boy no more. He tried to post a video online, some sad rant about corporate betrayal and family backstabbers. Barely got 1,000 views before someone leaked old texts of him mocking his own employees. His fall was fast and loud. I never intended to drag the whole family into it. But they noticed when Garrett's name disappeared from Lennox and Vaughn. They noticed when my name started popping up in industry write-ups. My uncle called me one day. I let it ring. Then he left a voicemail. I don't know what you think you've done, but this family doesn't forget betrayal. That made me laugh. They didn't call it betrayal when Garrett humiliated me in front of 200 people. They didn't call it betrayal when my aunt told people at church I'd probably just be a teacher if she's lucky. Now they cared. Now it hurt. My mother begged me to apologize. They're still family, she said. I told her. So was I. That didn't stop them. About 4 months after the takeover, I was speaking at a small business conference in Atlanta. My firm had sponsored part of it. I was on stage giving a talk about branding pivots. When I stepped off, Garrett was there, just standing near the back exit, waiting. His hair was longer. He looked tired, older. But his eyes? Same. Cold and condescending. Are you proud of yourself? He asked. Very, I said. You think you won? I shrugged. I didn't come here to win. I came here to build something. You just happen to be standing on it. He shook his head. You've ruined my life. I looked him in the eye. You did that all by yourself. I underestimated him. For a while Garrett went quiet. Too quiet. I thought maybe he'd finally accepted it. Moved on. I was wrong. 6 months after the takeover, a series of anonymous articles started popping up online. Blog posts. Insider leaks. Whisper threads. All hinting at shady financial moves during the acquisition of Lennox and Vaughn. Implying insider trading, nepotism, even abuse of corporate power. They weren't overt lies, just twisted half-truths. Taken out of context. Emails made to look like smoking guns. At first, I brushed it off. Then an anonymous tip was sent to the local business ethics board. I knew it was Garrett. No one else had the personal details those articles included. It didn't stick. Our legal team was solid. We'd kept everything above board. But it was close. For a few weeks, I felt like I was walking with a target on my back. Clients started asking questions. A few paused contracts just to wait and see. Garrett was trying to rot me from the inside. I never liked Cassidy, but I never thought she'd go out of her way to wreck me. Apparently, I was wrong again. 2 months after the smear campaign fizzled, Cassidy went on a local podcast. Said she wasn't surprised the company had fallen apart. The new leadership didn't come from business. She came from spite. She didn't name me, but it was obvious who she meant. She dropped hints that I was obsessed, that I used to show up to parties uninvited, that Garrett had tried to help me get internships back in college, but I just didn't have the drive. People believed her, because she was loud, pretty, polished, and I was still the girl they remembered sitting quietly in the corner at family barbecues. The hardest blow came from someone I trusted, my brother, Ryan. He'd always stayed out of family drama. Quiet. Supportive. He came to my office opening, brought wine to my first apartment, even helped me rewrite my first client contract years ago. But one day I found out he'd been texting Garrett. Not friendly how's it going stuff. Business stuff. Details. I saw a screenshot Garrett posted in a private group chat he didn't know I had access to. Ryan had shared updates about our expansion plans, our new client pitches. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. I didn't think it was a big deal, he said. You were going nuclear on him. I just thought maybe he deserved a heads up. I stared at him like I didn't know who he was. You picked a side, I said. Just don't lie about it. He tried to apologize later. I didn't answer the phone. It all came to a head in Nashville, 2 years after I fired Garrett. We were launching a flagship store, a huge new location, under the rebranded Sparrow Interiors. The company I built from the ashes of his family's legacy. The night before the opening, we were hit with a lawsuit. Filed by Garrett. Co-signed by Cassidy. He claimed he still held rights to part of the Lennox and Vaughn legacy branding, based on a clause buried deep in a 2003 contract his father had signed. Cassidy added her own claims about defamation, emotional distress, stolen opportunities. It was pure chaos. My legal team went into overdrive. The grand opening went forward, but the mood was tense. Press coverage was mixed. I barely slept. 3 days later, I walked into the courtroom. Garrett was already seated, Cassidy next to him. I noticed her wedding ring was back on. A reporter whispered, "They're reconciling. She's helping him rebuild his image." I stared straight ahead and said nothing. The trial lasted 4 months. Every ugly moment from the past decade was dragged into daylight. My motives. His sabotage. My brother's betrayal. Cassidy's podcast comments. And in the end, we both lost. The judge ruled in my favor for the main case. Ownership was legal. But the branding issue? I had to rebrand all remaining Lennox and Vaughn legacy stores. A $4.2 million hit, overnight. Garrett's defamation suit? Dismissed. Cassidy's claim? Thrown out. But the cost? My reputation took a hit. My investors pulled back. We laid off 17 staff. Our growth slowed. I had to scale down. Garrett didn't win anything, but he took a piece of me on the way out. After the court loss, Garrett tried to spin it into a comeback story. He launched a podcast. Again. This time with Cassidy as his co-host. They called it Resilience in Business. It flopped. 3 episodes in, Cassidy pulled out. Again. A week later, a business expose ran a story on Garrett's shady financial past. Turns out, during the trial, someone tipped the IRS. That someone wasn't me, but I wasn't sad to see it. Garrett ended up bankrupt. His house foreclosed. Cassidy left for good. This time, she sold her wedding ring and moved to Florida. Garrett moved into a 1-bedroom rental in Colombia and started a blog about the fall of modern business morals. His kids. One dropped out of college. The other changed her last name and refused to speak to him. He was a ghost. I got what I wanted. But at what cost? I burned bridges. My own brother still won't return my messages. He says I became the thing I hated. Maybe he's right. I haven't spoken to my mother in over a year. She thinks I destroyed the family for ego. And sometimes when I walk into our smaller, quieter office, I wonder if I took it too far. I didn't just destroy Garrett's legacy. I let my revenge become my identity. Last week I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. I lost everything. You won. But I hope you look in the mirror one day and ask yourself if it was worth it. I read it once. Then I fed it through the shredder. I don't regret what I did. But I do wonder who I might have become if he hadn't stood up at that wedding, raised his glass and made me a joke. Maybe I'd be softer. Kinda. Maybe I'd still be small. But I'm not. And that's something no one will ever laugh at again.